Chapter 81. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 81. Favorite Things Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. Do you have any favorite things? After Liang Yunqing asked this question, for some reason, her heart suddenly beat faster. She was like a little fan idol who had sent a private message to his idol asking a question. She waited anxiously. Would he really reply to her? Yin Qianqian did not hesitate. He just answered simply, no. She had originally wanted to find out what Yin Qianqian liked and prepare gifts for him. However, Liang Yunqing did not expect that she would get such an answer. However, it made sense. This person did not have any feelings. In terms of material things, he probably did not have any needs. Most of the things that he liked were things that he wanted but could not get. Liang Yunqing pursed her lips and did not speak anymore. She was only bored and did not have any worries. All she knew was to revolve around them all day. After returning home, Liang Yunqing had a full stomach and took a nap. When she woke up again, it was already afternoon. Yin Qianqian had already left. Liang Yunqing thought about it and asked Yu Siyue to go out to buy a gift. So, you're buying a gift for Iceberg Face. Why did you ask me to come? Yu Siyue was obviously not happy. You're also a boy. I asked you to be my reference. A man. Yu Siyue emphasized. Ha. Liang Yunqing blinked in confusion. I said, I'm a man. Yu Siyue corrected Liang Yunqing seriously. Liang Yunqing heard it and paused for a moment. She could not help but laugh out loud, especially correcting whether she was talking about a boy or a man. This was a very childish move. Although Yu Siyue was depressed, he was already very happy to meet Liang Yunqing. He did not care whether he was buying a gift for Yin Qianqian or not. It's just that I have never heard of Yin Qianqian having any birthday habits. If he did, wouldn't there be a lot of people fawning over him? Is that so? Liang Yunqing was confused for a moment. She could only attribute this matter to Yin Qianqian's relatively cold personality. He did not have much of a relationship with people. After thinking about it, Liang Yunqing had actually made her own decision. She wanted to make a set of soft clay dolls with her own hands. She had a foundation in art, so she was very good at doing these things. She tried it out in the shop that sold clay and pinched a little hedgehog and a little rabbit. Yu Siyue shouted that it was too cute and then snatched it over. The two of them were laughing and joking when a crazy girl suddenly barged into the shop. She grabbed the red clay in the shop and smashed it on the ground while muttering, red, dead, red, dead. Yu Siyue subconsciously protected Liang Yunqing. In a moment, a few security guards came and subdued the girl and pressed her to the ground. Looking at her like this, they wanted to reach out and hit her. Hey! Let's not do this. I think she's a patient. Since she didn't hurt anyone, why don't we call the police first? Liang Yunqing called out to them. The girl was skinny and small, so she would definitely be at a disadvantage. Moreover, not only was she clean, but she was also a brand, so she was probably not a homeless person. Yeah, she's quite pitiful. Yu Siyue echoed. Zhao Zhao. Are you okay? As they spoke, a tall man rushed in. He did not look at anyone but took out a stack of banknotes and threw them on the counter. This is compensation. He did not even raise his head to look at the person next to him. He hugged the girl's shoulder and hurried out. However, this small interlude did not affect the interest of the two of them. Liang Yunqing was in a hurry to go home after getting the design and the soft pottery production tools, ready to show off her skills. Miss Yunqing, where did you go? Hao Qing looked at Liang Yunqing, who was full of things, and asked curiously. If the soft pottery was to be baked, it had to be carefully placed. Hao Qing, who knew this family like the back of his hand, probably could not hide it from her. Moreover, if she told him, he might be able to come up with ideas. This is a birthday present for Yin Qianqian. I want to give him a surprise present. Liang Yunqing said with a smile. Birthday present. Hao Cheng's smile suddenly froze on his face, and his expression became a little strange. Chapter 82. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 82. If you sincerely treat him. Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. Hao Cheng's expression became a little strange. He was conflicted and wanted to say something, but he hesitated. It seemed that he was not willing to mention this matter. What's wrong? Liang Yunqing looked at Hao Cheng in confusion. She did not know why he suddenly made this expression. Nothing. Hao Cheng shook his head. After hesitating for a moment, he said, Sir never celebrates his birthday. Miss Yunqing, you don't have to bother to prepare. This was too out of Liang Yunqing's expectations. Hao Cheng, who always liked to jump between the two of them and always imagined thousands of things in his mind, actually said such a thing initially. Liang Yunqing thought that after she said this, he would jump up happily and take out a pink ribbon to help her wrap her gift. He actually gave her such a reaction. It would be a lie to say that she was not disappointed. Liang Yunqing had long memorized this special day and decided to give Yin Qianqian a surprise. She might be able to see his expression beyond the iceberg. Although Liang Yunqing did not know why Yin Qianqian did not have the habit of celebrating his birthday, she still decided to give him her birthday present. No one would hate receiving a present. Moreover, Liang Yunqing had already made all the preparations. The present she gave to Yin Qianqian was not only a small gift made of soft clay, but also a painting that she had drawn herself, as well as she had already booked a train ticket to a small city in central Anhui. There were green mountains and rivers there, but the key point was that it had not been polluted by the commercial atmosphere. There were no famous historical sites, but the blue sky and white clouds were very similar to the scene in the painting. When she thought of giving Yin Qianqian a gift, she inexplicably thought of the small city and the blue sky. Where had Yin Qianqian not been? The 7 continents and 4 oceans of the world had probably traveled all over the world, but he probably would not have noticed the scenery at the foot of the mountain. These things were not valuable, but Yin Qianqian clearly no longer lacked things like money. Since Hao Cheng had said that, Liang Yunqing thought to herself in a fit of pique. Then she should not make him her ally. This time, she would make her own decision. Liang Yunqing had already made a set of lifelike clay figurines. She arrived at the station early on the day before Yin Qianqian's birthday. It was the early autumn after the summer. Occasionally, there were a few cicadas that had not disappeared chirping on the trees, as if they were still telling people about the aftertaste of the summer. Liang Yunqing carried her bag and held her mobile phone in her hand. She wrote, deleted and wrote. Finally, she sent a message to Yin Qianqian, telling him that she was waiting for him here. There was no response for a long time. This was not like the usual Yin Qianqian. Liang Yunqing's message was from his personal phone. As long as he was not busy, he would at least give a reply no matter what his thoughts were. If Liang Yunqing remembered correctly, Yin Qianqian had not left the house before she went out. He would not have left the house after such a short while, right? Perhaps, she was too capricious. If Yin Qianqian did not come, she would go alone. The phone suddenly rang. Liang Yunqing's originally depressed heart suddenly sped up and jumped to her throat. However, when she took a look, it was clear that it was not Yin Qianqian. Hao Cheng. He probably noticed that she was out and called to ask. Hello. Miss Yunqing, where are you? Hao Cheng sounded very anxious. What happened? You really want to treat Sir well, right? Hao Cheng asked seriously. Liang Yunqing was slightly stunned. She didn't know why Hao Cheng suddenly said this, but she subconsciously responded softly. If you really treat Sir well and want to help him celebrate his birthday, I will pick you up now and go to a place. Please, you must help him. Chapter 83. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 83. Entanglement with him author. Bitter days. Machine translation. I'll pick you up now and go to a place where. You, what do you mean? Liang Yunsheng asked. Hao Qing paused for a moment on the other end of the phone, but as if he was afraid of wasting time, he said quickly, Miss Yunsheng, please don't ask. It's hard to say now. I'll explain to you face to face when we get there. Did something happen at home? Liang Yunsheng was uneasy. She quickly gave her address and waited for Hao Cheng's arrival. However, thinking about it, Yin Qianqian was indeed a little strange today. He must have known that she had left the house, but he did not ask her where she had gone. Even Hao Cheng was a little strange today. He did not even realize that he had left the house. It was unknown what he was busy with. Now, it seemed that the idea that he had come up with was a little willful and childish. What was the legend about a trip that could be taken at will? What was the world so big that he wanted to go out and take a look? It was really funny. If Yin Qianqian knew about this plan of his, he would definitely activate his taunting skill and make fun of me. But taunting was still taunting. Perhaps, Yin Qianqian would cooperate with me and carry out this trip to the end. His imagination ran wild. Hao Cheng's car had already arrived. Liang Yunqing greeted him and sat in it. It was very strange that Hao Cheng did not bring a driver, but drove the car himself. This is a secret about Sir and the Yin family. Hao Cheng took a deep breath and sighed. What? About Yin Qianqian's secret. And also about his family. For the first time, Liang Yunqing felt that the three strange emotions of fear, excitement, and panic had interweaved in her body. Later, we will go to look for Mr. At this time of the year, he will go there, Hao Cheng said. There. Liang Yunqing's mind was in a mess, and she only knew to ask back. A place that is comparable to hell. Hao Cheng said this with a smile, but this smile was full of ridicule. It was not known whether he was mocking that place or laughing at his own powerlessness. Hao Cheng drove for a long time and really drove into a narrow road that only allowed one car to enter and exit. There were trees all around, as if it was a real, desolate forest. Liang Yunqing could not help but frown. She was a little afraid. This was. Where did he drive to? So there was such a place in the city where she lived. Finally, the view in front of them widened a little. What appeared in front of them was a house that was similar to an ancient castle, but it was not the prince's gorgeous castle. It was more like a witch's dark ancient castle. This house was very old, and the exterior was crawling with cats. Hao Cheng parked the car in front of the house. As he got out of the car, he said to Liang Yunqing, the second floor, the third room. Liang Yunqing got out of the car and came to the front of this house. Hao Cheng stood behind her and said, this door is not locked. You can just push it gently, but Miss Yunqing. You can also choose to go back with me now, because. To tell you the truth, I'm not sure what will happen when you know this secret, and what kind of changes will happen between you and young master. He pushed open the door. If he pushed open the door, he would be pushing open the secret about Yin Qianqian. He would be inextricably entangled with this person. If he turned around and left, he would be able to continue living under the cover of Yin Qianqian as an ignorant Cinderella. Liang Yunqing took a deep breath. Yes, she had to make a decision, and she had already made it. Chapter 84. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 84. What is locked is Yin Qianqian's heart author. Bitter days. Machine translation. Even if he was scolded by Yin Qianqian for being a busybody, it doesn't matter if he was chased back by him. Liang Yunqing felt that she should go in and take a look. After all, it was definitely not a small matter for Hao Cheng to be so serious. Liang Yunqing reached out and pushed open the slightly old door. Creak. It was a creepy sound. The interior of the house was very dim, so it was shrouded in a faint eerie feeling, but it was surprisingly clean. BDNV. It was not like what Liang Yunqing imagined. After pushing the door open, dust flew everywhere, and there were spider webs everywhere. The interior of the house was dark, but the design was very good. The furniture and supplies were all available. If a light could light up the entire house, then it could really be said that this was a warm little home. Liang Yunqing tried to find the light switch, but Hao Cheng held her hand and shook his head. "Let's go upstairs to see Sir first." Hao Cheng lowered his voice, making the atmosphere more subtle. Liang Yunqing nodded. It could only be said that Hao Cheng's every move at this moment was the only reference she could follow. According to what Hao Cheng had just said, on the second floor, in the third room, Liang Yunqing counted 3 doors through the corridor. There was a small window facing the corridor. Liang Yunqing went over to take a look. Fortunately, the curtains were not closed. She saw a person sitting inside the room. He did not move at all, as if he had lost his soul. No, it should be said that he was a lifeless, soulless puppet. Yin Qianqian. Liang Yunqing secretly said his name. She pressed on her chest, as if she could feel the sorrow that this person was emitting from his body. What was going on? Liang Yunqing gently covered her lips, afraid that the slightest sound would alarm the people in the room. What exactly happened to make a person reveal so many sad emotions? This is the prison that Madame Yin used to keep Sir in. So, you see, even if the furnishings are perfect and everything is in place, it is still a gloomy darkness, Hao Cheng whispered into Liang Yunqing's ear. Madame Yin is Yin Qianqian's mother. Why would she do that? Liang Yunqing was shocked. What kind of mother would lock up her child in such a scary place? Hao Cheng shook his head. I was young at the time and didn't know much about the internal affairs of the Yin family. I only knew that Sir had suffered a lot from his childhood to his adolescence. Then why did he come here on his birthday? That year, Sir was locked up on his birthday. It seems that something else happened, but I still don't know the details. No wonder. No wonder Hao Cheng told himself that there was no need to celebrate Yin Qianqian's birthday. Will he stay inside? Then, won't he eat or drink? Liang Yunqing guessed carefully. Hao Cheng nodded lightly. How could this be? Liang Yunqing pulled the lock on the door, and sure enough, it was locked from the inside. Yin Qianqian. Liang Yunqing gently knocked on the door and called out his name. Looking through the window, Yin Qianqian did move a little because of Liang Yunqing's voice, but they couldn't see his expression clearly. They only knew that he didn't get up and walk over to open the door for Liang Yunqing. If he did not open the door for them, they could only force their way in. Yes, they had to force their way in. This lock was not only locked on this door, it was also locked on Yin Qianqian's heart. Chapter 85. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 85. An innocent heart that has been trampled on. Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. Liang Yunqing pushed the door lock twice again, making a clicking sound. Of course, she could not open the door. Yin Qianqian, are you going to open the door or not? Liang Yunqing stood in front of the door and slammed it a few more times. She had really mustered up all her courage to do such a crazy thing. This was not touching the tiger's butt, but pulling the tiger's whiskers out of its mouth. However, Hao Cheng had already given her a chance to choose before this, and it was not just once. On the phone, he asked her if she truly treated Yin Qianqian and pushed open the door of the old house. He asked herself if she would choose to go back or get entangled with Yin Qianqian. Entangled. Liang Yunqing used her hand to pound on the door again. It should have been long ago when he brought her out of the Liang family, or when she bumped into him that rainy night, she had already lost her mind. Suddenly, the door handle started to turn. Liang Yunqing was shocked and took a step back. At this moment, she was so nervous that she could only hear her heart thumping. The door was opened and a tall man stood inside. However, at this moment, he showed a fragility that he had never shown in front of her. Yin Qianshan's entire body was surrounded by gloom. His handsome face was gloomy, and there were heavy green shadows under his eyes. It was obvious that he had not rested well. He seemed to have blended into the horror of this house. It was unusually calm, but the calmer it was, the more abnormal it was. This was not the usual him, it was not the usual Yin Qianshan. What happened? You want to do this? You can tell us. Liang Yunsheng took a deep breath and tried to look calmer. At least, she could not show that she was too afraid. Yin Qianshan's hand was still on the door handle, and his eyes fell on Liang Yunsheng. Liang Yunsheng swallowed her saliva. She felt that his eyes were like two shackles that suddenly shackled her body, making her unable to move. The atmosphere was so oppressive. Although Yin Qianshan was cold and emotionless, he stood here and did not say a word. He just looked at her. This. Liang Yunsheng suddenly remembered something. She hurriedly took out a small box from her bag and handed it to Yin Qianshan. This is a gift for you. She deliberately skipped the word birthday. She knew that he would probably be uncomfortable listening to it. She just wanted to give him a gift. This should not cause him to be disgusted, right? Liang Yunsheng handed the box to Yin Qianshan with both hands. Yin Qianshan still did not move an inch. He did not even glance at the box. Liang Yunsheng just wanted to ease the atmosphere, but she held the gift in her hand, but he did not even want to reach out to take it. The two of them were in a stalemate. It seemed more awkward than just now. Just as Liang Yunsheng's thoughts were running wild, Yin Qianshan suddenly made a move. Without warning, he raised his hand and hit the gift box in Liang Yunsheng's hand. Unexpectedly, the gift flew out. With a crash, the box fell to the ground, and the things inside made a crisp sound. Liang Yunsheng squatted down nervously and opened the box in a hurry. It was a small crystal house. Inside it were 4Q version cartoon-colored pottery dolls. They were a handsome man in a suit with a straight face, a lively girl, a man in a tuxedo who looked like a butler, and a yellow puppy. Fortunately, the broken pieces were the crystal house where they were placed. The few dolls were still intact. Liang Yunsheng squatted on the ground, holding the colored pottery in her hands. Her eyes could not help but heat up. Don't cry, don't let him look down on Liang Yunsheng, she told herself in her heart. Chapter 86. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 86. I didn't say that you could leave. Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't be so childish, this is just a small matter. Anne. The thing isn't broken. Even though she repeatedly used words to comfort herself, the feeling of her heartfelt feelings being trampled under someone's feet was really not good. Liang Yunsheng sniffed her sore nose and squatted on the ground to calm herself down. Hao Cheng, who was at the side, saw that she had not stood up for a long time and was a little anxious. He hurriedly took 2 steps forward and asked, Miss Yunsheng, are you all right? Finally, when the mist in her eyes had dissipated a little, Liang Yunsheng tried her best to make herself look fine. She stood up and shook her head at Hao Cheng with a smile. I'm fine. Liang Yunsheng walked to Yin Qianshan again, pursed her lips, and raised the corners of her lips. She held the soft clay doll in her hand in front of him again. I made this and wanted to give it to you. Look, what are they? They are family. Because of the protection of their family, even if they encounter big storms, even if they are thrown to the ground, they will not be hurt. Liang Yunsheng blinked, her long and dense eyelashes blinked twice, and continued, so, aren't we the same? If you have anything to say, you can tell me. And Hao Cheng, we. Who? You are allowed to come. This was a reprimand. Liang Yunsheng's body trembled, and she suddenly felt cold. Her heart was full of disappointment. The words she said from the bottom of her heart just now still could not melt the frozen heart of the man in front of her. Hao Cheng stepped forward and blocked in front of Liang Yunsheng. He lowered his head and explained weakly, "Sir, don't blame Miss Yunsheng. I was the one who brought her here." Yin Qianqian reached out his hand and did not say anything. He slapped Hao Cheng's face without holding back. Hao Cheng's body swayed and he tilted his head. Blood was already seeping out of the corner of his lips. Liang Yunsheng cried out in surprise. How could she not know how powerful Yin Qianqian's palm was? As expected, this slap was stopped by Hao Cheng's hand. "About 3 years ago, I discovered Sir's secret. Every year, I would follow you when you weren't paying attention." Hao Cheng was Yin Qianqian's least guarded and most intimate person. However, at the same time, he was also the most vulnerable and dangerous existence. Yin Qianqian mercilessly slapped him in the face again. Hao Cheng could not stand steadily at this time, and his head was a little dizzy. "Sir, Hao Cheng did wrong. But Miss Yunsheng doesn't know anything. She was just invited by Hao Cheng to help you." Yin Qianqian wanted to raise his hand again, but Liang Yunsheng suddenly pounced on him and hugged his arm tightly. "Don't hit him anymore. He didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing wrong. No. We were wrong. We were all very wrong and wanted to save you, the devil. Miss Yunsheng." Liang Yunsheng was stunned. Her unintentional words came out of her mouth, and her face instantly turned pale. She didn't mean that. She just wanted him to stop and not hurt the people who really cared about him. "You can go now," Yin Qianqian suddenly said in a deep voice. Hao Cheng was stunned. He did not expect Yin Qianqian to let them go so easily. It was just 2 slaps, and he had committed such a huge crime, but he actually. It was over. Hao Cheng lowered his head and said yes. He turned around and left. After taking 2 steps, he turned back and called Liang Yunsheng, "Miss Yunsheng, where are you going?" "I'll send you first." Liang Yunsheng hesitated for a moment, but she still raised her foot and was ready to follow him. "Can you still drive?" "I'll send you to the doctor first." "Ah." Yin Qianqian suddenly grabbed Liang Yunsheng's arm and pulled her to his side. He gritted his teeth and said, "I said that he can walk, but I didn't say that you can walk too." Chapter 87. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 87. The Evil of Eating Her Alive. Binov Com author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. At this moment, Yin Qianqian was emitting a ruthless aura that made Liang Yunsheng feel afraid. You first let go." She pursed her lips and pretended to be calm as she discussed with him. Yin Qianqian held her wrist tightly. Liang Yunsheng's fair arm was held by him as if he could break it with just a little force. "Sir, it's my fault. It really has nothing to do with Miss Yunsheng. It's all my own doing. If you feel that it's not enough to vent your anger, I can also." Hao Cheng saw the situation and knew that it was not the time for him to leave. He turned around and walked back while explaining. "I said, I'll let you go," Yin Qianqian said faintly. Although there was no change in his voice, his aura was even stronger. It was a feeling of being suppressed by a powerful force. The other 2 people present immediately shut their mouths. It was like the law of the jungle. As long as all the animals in the forest heard the slightest sound of the king of beasts and smelled a trace of his aura, they could not help but lower their heads and bow to him. This was a food chain that could not be ignored. Without saying any more nonsense to the 2 people in front of him, Yin Qianqian pulled Liang Yunsheng directly into the room and closed the door with a bang. Yin Qianqian controlled Liang Yunsheng with one hand and quickly locked the door with the other. Hao Cheng reacted and rushed to knock on the door, but he received no response. "Sir! Sir!" Hao Cheng's face was pale. It was the sequela of being slapped by Yin Qianqian, and he was worried about what would happen if Liang Yunsheng was in the room. Most people who knew Yin Qianqian knew how cruel and ruthless he was, but most of the time, it was just hearsay and rumors. Not many people had actually seen Yin Qianqian's ruthless appearance, or rather, most of the people who had seen him were no longer in this world. Hao Cheng was probably one of the few people who was so close to Yin Qianqian. He naturally had the opportunity to see how he treated those who were unwilling to obey him. What are you trying to do? It hurts. Let me go. Liang Yunqing felt a strong sense of oppression. She struggled to break free from Yin Qianqian's shackles. Yin Qianqian pushed Liang Yunqing forward with a little strength and pushed her onto the bed. The door was locked, so he let her go. However, even if he did not lock the door, she would not be able to escape from his grasp. Liang Yunqing only felt a sharp pain where her arm was grabbed. She would feel a tingling pain if she touched it. She frowned and stepped back. Are you trying to punish us for acting on our own? Yin Qianqian did not say anything. He just walked straight towards the person on the bed. Don't come over. His aura was too dangerous. Liang Yunqing was like a small animal that had sensed the great danger. All the hair on her body stood up. She vigilantly picked up the pillow beside her and threw it at him. This was completely a subconscious self-defense action. Yin Qianqian turned his head and easily opened the pillow with his hand. The fear in Liang Yunqing's heart was like a vine that had been watered. It grew crazily. She threw all the pillows on the bed. Of course, this did not have any effect on resisting the enemy. Yin Qianqian bent down and pressed down on her wrist with one hand. The other hand pinched her delicate chin and forced her to look at him. Their eyes met and Liang Yunqing was shocked. Because the dark brown pupils of that person were full of evil that wanted to tear her apart and eat her up. Chapter 88. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 88. The Pain of Being Torn Apart. Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. No, this isn't right. This isn't Yin Qianqian. At least, it's not the Yin Qianqian that she knew. Liang Yunqing blinked, hoping to sweep away the panic in her eyes. She had to face Yin Qianqian calmly and not say anything wrong. What's wrong with you? Liang Yunqing looked at him again, hoping to find a trace of the past in his eyes. Just like you said, I'm a devil. Should I do something that only a devil would do? Yin Qianqian grabbed Liang Yunqing's wrist, lifted it and fixed it above her head, causing her half-sitting body to change its position. Liang Yunqing fell backward violently. Fortunately, there was a soft king-size bed under her, so it did not hurt too much. However, her hands were pressed down by Yin Qianqian, and she could not move. Oh! Before she could recover from her earlier actions, Liang Yunqing's red and delicious mouth was invaded the moment she opened her mouth to speak. Yin Qianqian kissed her mercilessly. This kiss was not like the past at all. It was to tease her, to see her blush in embarrassment as a prank. Instead, it was a real burning, killing, and snatching, not giving her any chance to resist. Her lips and tongue entwined, and she gave a little humph, and made an angry sound, but it seemed more ambiguous when it came out. The last thread of clarity, Liang Yunqing can still move the legs to kick randomly, hope the body of the people can let her go. Aware of her resistance, Yin Qianqian left legs slightly bent up, exert force, hold her legs bend, so that she cannot move. Kiss. Kiss. A long, lingering kiss. No, perhaps in the end, it was not a simple kiss to describe the action, but a bite. A Mengsho is biting the mouth of the prey. Both of them could taste the bloody smell in their mouths. They were not sure if it belonged to the other party or their own. Finally, Liang Yunqing did not know whether she had completely given up resisting, or she was kissed until she lost all her strength and completely lost her mind. She just lay there, as if she had lost her breath. But the kiss and biting that invaded her did not stop. How long had it been? The two people in the room did not know, and they did not care. It was not until Yin Qianqian finally had enough of wantonly and slowly stopped his action that the air in the room seemed to slowly melt and flow. Why? Liang Yincheng's voice trembled slightly, and a tear slid down the corner of his eye and into his hair. Why? You want to do this kind of thing to hurt the people who care about you, she spoke with a lump in her throat. Yin Qianqian's next action paused for a moment because of Liang Yincheng's words, but it was only a slight pause that was almost imperceptible. It did not affect his hands that were causing trouble. Care about me? Yin Qianqian's voice was very low. He lowered his head and put his lips next to Liang Yincheng's pink cheeks. You know very well why you care about me. If you don't have me, you don't have the big tree that you're leaning against. You're nothing. I don't. Before she could retort, she was shocked by Yin Qianqian's next move and screamed. He grabbed one of her collars and pulled it out forcefully. The button on her neck that had been tightly closed opened easily. It looked like the wound on Liang Yincheng's heart. Chapter 89. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 89. Bite her fair neck. Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. Liang Yincheng never thought that such a thing would happen to her. She never thought that the person who did such a thing to her was Yin Qianqian. Yes, this was an action that had nothing to do with desire. He was just venting his emotions and punishing himself. But the point was, what was wrong with her? Liang Yincheng's collar was torn open, revealing her slender and fair neck, tempting people to move. Yin Qianqian slowly covered her neck with his palm and gradually tightened his fingers. Liang Yincheng was very clear about the strength of this hand. Just now, her arm could have been broken if he had exerted more force. Liang Yincheng felt that the big palm on her neck was still tightening. The air entering her body through her mouth became thinner and thinner. The fear of dying made her understand that she had to do something immediately. So what if you kill me? You will only make it harder for others to get close to you. Hao Qing will feel guilty for the rest of his life. He shouldn't have brought me here. And we are just trying to help you. She saw that the man's eyes were bloodshot. Perhaps at this moment, his soul had really been devoured by the devil, and he could turn into a mad demon who killed without blinking at any time. So she decided to say it. She said everything that she wanted to say in her heart. Hao Qing and I, no matter who it is, we can just ignore you. But we still took the risk of being treated like this by you. Liang Yincheng struggled hard. Of course, it was fruitless, but she wanted to tell him through this action that she had not surrendered yet. We just want you to get better. We don't want to see you become like this. Yin Qianqian. Please wake up. Liang Yincheng felt that her words were emotional even if she did not cry. However, Yin Qianqian's eyes were still cold and silent. Yes, he would not be moved. Just because of her words, it was not a reason for him to stop. I have long seen clearly the relationship between people. Other than benefits, jealousy, and hatred, what else is there? Why do you have to be so extreme? Liang Yincheng retorted, just because you've been hurt before, you want to hurt others. This is a vicious cycle. There won't be a good ending. Shut up. Yin Qianqian pinched Liang Yincheng's chin, making it impossible for her to open her mouth and say anything else. What do you know? Yin Qianqian slowly dropped the clothes on her shoulder with one hand and slid them down to her arm. Liang Yincheng trembled slightly and moved her body, but she could not stop him from doing so. Is being abandoned by your parents the greatest pain? Actually, it's not entirely true. They did not abandon you. You won't abandon you like a broken shoe. They just despise you for not being good enough. Just being ignored and ignored, you can't stand it anymore. You're really a little sparrow with a burst of pride. After being hit in the sore spot, Liang Yincheng's eyes slowly widened a little. She looked at Yin Qianqian in disbelief. Her heart ached, but it was not because of the heartache, but because the words came from Yin Qianqian's mouth. Yin Qianqian lowered his head and kissed Liang Yincheng's smooth and delicate shoulder. This is what you did today. Liang Yunsheng was stunned. This was what she did today. She opened other people's scars and said confidently that the pain was not on her body, so it could always be like this. Even if the parts of the pain were the same, there was no empathy. Yin Qianqian held her head with one hand and opened his mouth to bite her fair neck. Chapter 90. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 90. Press your lips lightly against his lips. Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. Oh, ah. Liang Yunsheng felt a piercing pain on her neck. The sharp teeth slowly pierced into her skin. It was an unforgettable pain. Her delicate skin was bitten, and soon, a drop of bright red blood oozed out. Yin Qianqian straightened his body after tasting the blood. You said that I'm a demon. Yes, actually, it's not wrong. Demons want to devour blood and thirst for bones. Are you afraid to be by my side? Liang Yunsheng's jaw was loosened, but her entire body was in pain. Because, you've also been a demon who has devoured flesh and blood. Have you been hurt? Wrong, because I also have a demon's bloodline. Liang Yunsheng paused for a moment. This sounded confusing and strange, but she actually clearly understood Yin Qianqian's meaning. The so-called demon's bloodline he referred to was probably the Yin family. I still can't agree with what you said. If there's only profit and hatred between people, then what's the meaning of everything we do? Whether it's profit or hatred, all of the causes are because people are pursuing happiness, looking for love. At least, I know that such a person doesn't help me because of profit. Yin Qianqian completely let go of her and walked out of the bed. He walked to the window on the other side and turned his head. He lowered his eyes and looked out of the window, not making a sound. Liang Yunsheng caught her breath, pulled her clothes, and walked down from the messy bed, should she try to escape. However, her feet did not listen to her. She looked at Yin Qianqian, who was covered in sadness, and felt that she still could not leave. She was not the savior, but she was thinking that maybe when Yin Qianqian was hurt, no matter who it was, as long as she gave him a warm embrace, he would not be like this. Liang Yunsheng hugged him from the side of the building. His body was cold. He had just made such a big move, but it was still cold to the bone. Despite her abrupt action, Yin Qianqian did not move. After a while, he reached out his hand and gently brushed his thumb across her neck, which had 2 small wounds. He lowered his eyes and seemed to be thinking about something. Aren't you going to ask me who that is? Liang Yunsheng made a small sound, which was unusually sweet, like a little lover saying intimate words in her ear. After waiting for a while, Liang Yunsheng also expected that she would not get an answer from Yin Qianqian. However, she continued, he is a person that everyone is afraid of, but I feel that he is like his own savior. Even if you think that the pain in my heart is not worth mentioning, that is the entire life of the 16-year-old Liang Yunsheng, her parents, family, and life. Liang Yunsheng paused for a moment and sighed inaudibly. She continued, perhaps it is different for you, who is shouldering a heavier responsibility. My small world is made up of those things that are not worth mentioning. If one day it suddenly collapses, I might really die. Fortunately, you appeared. Tell me, don't give up, I can become better, I can make everyone look at me again. This is good, I have found the meaning of life again. Liang Yunsheng turned to him, reached out, held his face, stood on tiptoe, raised her head, and pressed her lips lightly against his lips.